Hi, it's Panda Movies here. Today, I'm going to explain the movie called Downsizing. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. Enjoy the video. Dr. Jrgen Asbjrnsen, a Norwegian scientist, creates downsizing, an irreversible technique that decreases organic material in order to combat overpopulation and global warming. He is among the first human test subjects, and he is encouraged by the fact that the process decreases people's height to about 5 inches, substantially reducing their consumption and waste. There is a global sensation when the findings are published 5 years later at a symposium. Paul and Audrey Safranek, a financially strapped Omaha couple, run into Dave and Carol Johnson, who have downsized, at Paul's high school reunion 10 years later. Dave contends that the true incentive to downsize is that one's money goes a lot further when one is small, rather than the advertised environmental benefits. Paul and Audrey decide to have the treatment and relocate to Leisureland, New Mexico, one of the more upscale small-town towns. Paul receives a call from Audrey in a Leisureland recuperation room, telling him that she has decided not to go through with their plan and that she is leaving him because they are now different sizes. Paul signs his divorce papers a year later. He's moved into an apartment because he can't afford to live in the mansion Audrey chose, and he's working as a customer service representative for Land's End because he let his occupational therapy license lapse because he didn't expect to have to work after being shrunk, but he's also started dating someone. They break up, and Paul goes to a raucous party thrown by his dubious but kind neighbor Duan. Paul recognizes one of Duan's house cleaners the next morning as Ngoc Lan Tran, a Vietnamese political activist who was imprisoned and downsized against her will, escaped in a television box, barely survived being shipped to the United States, and was brought to Leisureland a year ago to have her leg amputated. Paul goes to Ngoc Lan's residence in the slums just beyond the borders of Leisureland, where the community service workers dwell, to help her with her prosthetic limb. Paul had not considered this aspect of the small economy and is astounded at the slum's conditions. Ngoc Lan has Paul try to help her dying friend at her flat. He smashes her prosthetic limb when she eventually lets him work on it, so he decides to work for her cleaning service and also help her gather food from across the city to distribute around the slums until she can obtain a new one. Duan tries to relieve Paul of his commitment by taking him to deliver supplies to the original colony for small people, but Ngoc Lan suddenly decides to accompany them as she has a standing invitation to meet Dr. Asbjrnsen, who had heard about her ordeal. Dr. Asbjrnsen and his wife board the boat driven by Duan's friend Joris Conrad in a Norwegian fjord. Dr. Asbjrnsen declares that it has been definitively determined that the human race will soon become extinct owing to the positive feedback of Arctic methane emissions. Paul inquires if downsizing can preserve humanity, but Dr. Asbjrnsen responds that the treatment is too late, as only 3% of the globe has decided to shrink thus far. Paul and Ngoc Lan make love that night. The visitors arrive at the colony to discover that Dr. Asbjrnsen is putting in place a contingency plan the next day. He and the other colonists will enter a massive subterranean vault, and their descendants will emerge after the surface environment stabilizes in around 8,000 years. Duan and Joris are suspicious of the cult-like scheme, claiming that extinction will take hundreds of years. However, Paul is eager to enter the vault and contribute to the endeavor to preserve humanity's survival. He invites Ngoc Lan to accompany him, but she declines, claiming that the ones in need will be those who remain above ground. Paul changes his mind and steps outside just as the vault door closes. Back in Leisureland, Paul continues to work alongside Ngoc Lan to help the slum dwellers, finding happiness in simple tasks like serving food to an elderly man.